How are you, Jean-Baptiste?
I'm really good. Hello, everybody. Could you hear me correctly?
Yes, yes. We're good. We can hear you.
Happy to be here. It's strange to be at home and doing a tasting and talking about wine, but I think it's the new way,
It's the new way, yes. It,
and apparently it's working. So we can, yes.
so tell us a bit about your story, because you didn't start out making wine.
So my story, I start in 2014. Before that, so my parents, they are farmers. So I grew up in the apricot, cherry trees, and vineyard. So it was very familiar to me. And but before 2014, I decided to travel a lot and making my own experience. So my chance was I was consultant for almost 5 years just before 2014,
Enologist,
and
right?
yes, and I discover I like pretty much all the terroir of the northern Rhone, and it's kind of stuff. Even if you're born there, you never imagine what you have
Mm.
in front of you. So I spent 5 years and always driving on a vineyard, check every growers. And in 2014, I decided to make my home just because, it's my region. So I was really happy to show a piece of land. And I find some growers, people that I qualified like really good people and really good growers. And they sell me some grapes, and I start to do single vineyard.
That's
So
something you kind of took from Burgundy, maybe a little?
yeah, Burgundy. So in 2007, I was very lucky to work with Benjamin Leroux at Conterman, and it was his first year, Benjamin Leroux company, and I was really happy to be there. And for me, Burgundy was always a model because even if it's a long, long time ago, they classified the terroir, and I think they are true since a long, long time. And just dream about wine. You have to think about Burgundy because Burgundy could be magic. One glass of Burgundy can change your life. You can have
Mm.
one red or white sometimes, and it changes your life. Just because you fall down and you say, "Oh, it's good, it's fine, and it's really good," and that's it. And
And
then after that, as they have the knowledge and everything, it's very interesting. Our region, the Northern Rhone, we are very new. We have both sides. We are looking for blending wine, and we also made single vineyard. So my
but
way, yeah,
but there's not I mean, Hermitage tends to be a blended wine. Um, Clos and Saint Joseph, for the most part, certainly tend to be blended wines. Um, I think I heard once that even famous wines I adore in Cornice, that for example Allemand, even though it says Chaillot, it's not 100% from Chaillot or something like that. Is that true? Or
yeah, it is, that's true. That's true.
so what you, I mean, the way you told me the story at first is that you really wanted to bring um, that single vineyard parcel delimitation to specifically Saint Joseph and Clos Hermitage, and well, you did.
Yeah, and the point was very simple. I just need to dream. So when you make wine, you you can do whatever you want, but there is no one way to making wine. There is many ways.
Hmm.
So me, my dream was to make, like, if we talk about Saint Joseph, I born there. It's very multi-facing. It's beautiful, but you know that, Paul. You can be at the top of the hill. You can be on the bottom. You can be in the middle. You can be east facing, south facing. You can have different soil. So my dream was to show terroir only. So I try to neutralize. There is my style on vinification. There is Jean-Baptiste Souillard style. So that's the first point. You like or you don't like. But if you like my style, behind that, the fact is, as I neutralize, there is no yeast. I use only old barrel.
Well,
It's
let's
very easy to show terroir. And even myself, I dream about the wine because after that, you just have to talk about what you have.
hmm.
I mean, soil, altitude, exposition, and that will make the difference. Just
So
because the human, I make the wine, but as they are, it's all the same winemaking for everyone. It's very easy to show and say this is the terroir effect. After you like, you don't like, it's not the point. It's
hmm.
just I show you a piece of land. And for me, it's really important because a lot of time you taste good wine, but it's always sometimes oaky. It could be the vinification, the winemaking, it could be something else.
Hmm.
So me, I really try to focus only on the terroir, and that's the point.
Okay, so your first vintage was 2014. I actually found the wines almost by mistake. I was in actually Ben Leroux's cellar,
Yeah.
and there was a case of Alain Graillot, and under that there were two six packs of Jean-Baptiste Souillard. And did it say Rhone on it or something, or did it on the sides? I forget.
And no, no,
Okay, so
just my name. I'm not
okay,
megaloman, but just my name.
okay. So I said to Benjamin, what's that under the Giraud from Graillot? And he said, oh, it's Jean-Baptiste Souillard, and he used to be a stagiaire here, and he's in the Northern Rhone. And I said, okay, is it any good? And he said, yes, it's really good. And there's a beautiful domain. There's something going on there. And so I called you, and I just remember that after 3 seconds, I was like, okay, I want to taste. So Ben was kind enough to let me steal some bottles, and I tasted them. And in it, I fell on the greatest crows I'd ever tasted in my life. Um, and Deirdre, hi Deirdre, is on here. And that same night after I tasted it, I poured it to Wildman. And there we go. That's how we started. So for so for the moment, you're a micronegos like Ben,
Yeah.
um, with tiny quantities of about 1,000 wines. But so there, for the moment, there's not too much viticulture to talk about. But you do have some news. You have some
Yeah,
vineyards.
it's used, but I'm kind of people. I take time for everything. But there is a new project. It's a secret for no one. My parents, they are farmers, and they are now getting retired.
Mhm,
Um, and I am looking after the vineyard now, right now.
mhm,
Um, and I discover a new passion because it was very new for me. I spent when I was young, I spent a lot of time on the vineyard. So it was my, during summertime, it was my time. So I know all the step and everything, but I never put the foot in my vineyard since a while. And 2 years ago, I started gently to work with my parents. So I was really happy first. But the knowledge was far away, and so but since a year now, I manage totally by myself the vineyard.
how many
So
hectares?
We've got 6.5 hectares in total, but we are still selling the grapes to the cooperative seller. Uh, so for sure, I will change a little bit this way because I think I'm now getting. I want to get my own.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's tiny, it's important because we have story with the cooperative seller. My great great father was one of the founder.
Mm-hmm.
So we have story with, and like it's important for me, for my parents, and I think for my great father. So we will keep going on that, but on the side, I will start a new project. And so I start slowly to walk the soil. And like this year, we are looking for 100% the treatment are organic. Uh, I have no idea if it's dangerous or no, but for me, there is no way to use chemical and
Mm-hmm.
dangerous stuff. So first year we are already organic on a vineyard. So it's big project. But for me, there is no other way. So because with my negos, where I'm very lucky and happy because all the people that I work with, they are more than clean. So some they have on the label organic, some have not. But for me, behind that there is a human, and all the human that I work with, they are really good, and they like the terroir, and you can see that when you walk
Mm-hmm.
on the vineyard. I feel totally distressed about that. Sometimes most mostly in France, when you are negos, it's not good. But for me, it's my chance. It was my chance in 2014, and I have no complexity and no complex with that. And I am very happy with the life that I have and the people that I met. And I started in 14, and I'm still working with the same people. So since the beginning, I never lose any contract. It's exactly the same row, the same terroir. So there is a big continuity, and you know, so this new project will came, but it will take time. I have no pressure about that because I'm very happy with what I'm doing today. So for the next year, for sure, I will bring something new, but I will take time just for make sure the fruit that I bring, they are same quality or better than what I'm buying today. And
And
oh, yeah,
what are the appellations in the family vineyards? Saint Joseph?
uh, it's very simple. It's all Saint Joseph.
Okay. And are there really, I mean, do you have several single vineyards or?
Um, Let me say we have three blocks.
Mm,
So the main block, it's on the same hill as Janoun. For
okay.
the people who know my cuvée, I have two cuvées on this hill, which is Chateau Marella and Janoun. So we have three kind of tower on this hill.
Mm,
One on the bottom part, one on the hill, on the very deep coteau,
yeah, we'll
and
go look at it.
one very close to Janon.
Okay.
And then we have another block very close to the farms where we are living, at the top of the hill.
That's what I'm
Uh,
drinking right now, actually. Janoun.
so yes, we have a second block very close to the farm, which is opposite to the colline of Janoun.
Okay.
And then we have a third part of the vineyard, which is a patchwork of very small plots, very close to the Rhone River. So let me say the soil could be different to granite,
And
just because.
so the first year you weren't tempted to make any trials with any grapes from those vineyards?
Sorry.
Did you not make any wine yet? Not even to try?
Ah, should I tell you that? No, I did some try. I did
Uh,
some try, and we never taste.
no, we
We
didn't.
just never taste because I can do vertical. And I played with many terroirs, and I think it's interesting. Uh, And even if it's not, I will bring it interesting just because it's, for me, it's family vineyard, so there is no word for that. Uh,
Mm.
you just have to be happy and say that I'm lucky to have that. So we have to play with that.
How
And
many how many brothers and sisters do you have?
oh, big. No, I got one brother, which is older than me, and two sisters. Uh,
So
but
they're
the
all,
point was, my parents, they just get retired right now. There is no stress for manage the vineyard. So my brother was very close to came, but at the end he says no, he want to keep his job, and so at the moment it's me 100% who are managing this new project, and I guess my two sisters, they will not come with because they are working. And
mm,
but if I take this time, it was just because I don't want to push my brother and sister to it's always difficult to start too earlier. My parents was there, and me, I have a new philosophy. I want to have a new project, and I just want to be sure I will be happy 100% with this new project. And I think now it's the time for that. So I will share my time, Negos, and this part. And so it's busy time. I just at the moment it's like vintage every day, but it's fine. It's fine for me, and I'm very happy.
okay. So let's talk about winemaking because you have a very specific signature, and it's not. Yeah. So I mean, let's first start with the whites because you make quite a few whites.
Yeah,
Uh, so I
yeah.
mean,
Wait,
one of the most important things for you is picking date on white Rhones.
yeah. White. So for me, white is a bit special because I'm big producer of white. It's almost 40% of my production, and in Northern Rhone, a
Aha. 14.
normally, yes, first. Normally, it's 90% of red and 10% of white. But I totally understand this because we are not the main region for the white wine. There is Burgundy, there is Loire Valley, there is Champagne. They are much better than us. But it was traditional. We have the grapes. We grow. We have three grapes: Marsanne, Roussanne, and Viognier. So, as I wasn't a fan of Northern Rhone white before 2014, when I start my project, I try to make wine white a bit different than the rest. So my target first was to pick when it's ripe and not overripe.
Mm.
So we have wine more for gastronomic, for sure. But here, if we wait, we pass the maturity, and then after is getting flat. So the Heidi, which is the main point, is to pick when it's ripe. None over, none under. Because if you pick under ripe, with the grapes that we grow, it could be terrible. The bitterness could be strong and not good. So the Heidi is to pick when it's ripe. So for that, it's big decision. You have to be ready and very, sometimes in one day you pass the peak and then it's too late
Because you
after
have a
you
very
have
you
had.
have a very narrow window with those varieties, right?
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And yeah, and also the fact for the white, my constat was we have white with no acidity.
Mm.
So we have to play with something else. And so I decided in 2014 to buy a very small basket press.
Mm.
And my my guess was to extract tannin and structure because I guess the great white that we grow, like Hermitage, they have no acid at all, but they have structure.
Mm.
So my idea was to extract tannin just for make the body straight and play with the natural acidity. I would never had any acid. We don't need. There is white for aperitif. There is white for food. There is white for every 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 dish. So
Do
we are
you
playing. Yeah.
do you crush before you press?
No. No. No.
Whole cluster press.
Uh, no. Yeah. No. Sorry. Crush. Yes, I crush, but I keep the stems.
Mm.
And my idea is to. I'm trying to oxidize maximum as first, just for make sure after that for the fermentation we keep only the strongest part, because as we have no acid, if we have no structure and no strong tannin, our wine will fall very quickly after 3 or 4 years,
Mm.
and it's not the way that I want making wine. I'm trying to making wine for sure for now, but also for the for the past. So this is the hardest point.
How long is your pressing for the whites?
It could be very long. It could be very long, and the Heidi. It's every vintage is different, but on the press we can keep more than 8 hours if we need it. The
Mm.
Heidi is to really extract tannin and oxidize all the primer stuff. Like
Mm.
I don't wanna, the white that I made, they are not aromatic at all. I prefer lose the primer stuff. Like I can make Marsan or Viognier very aromatic, very sexy, but this is for me. This is kind of makeup, and then it fall down after 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
So my idea is to build the wine for a long, long time.
Mm.
So now, like I'm testing 2014, which was my first vintage, and this one was very special for me because you know you dream about winemaking before you start your home. But when you start your home, when you are in the front of the grapes, you have to apply what you dream about years ago.
Mm.
And so for me, it was very interesting to start my own because you do what you want to do, and then the result is still earlier, but we will see in 5 years maybe, because after 10 years you can have an idea about what you are doing. But
How's the reduction on the 14?
it was terrible
No, but
first.
how is it now? and
Nothing,
and
nothing.
my second question is, why is there no reduction at all on the 18?
There
Zero.
is still, but now,
No.
yeah,
It's
not at all.
it's actually slightly more oxidative than reductive.
Yeah, because I am playing on, I'm trying to pass to the oxidized, the reduct, and after that be open. And I put, if we compare right now to the beginning in 2014, I put less and less sulfur.
Do
I
you
mean,
on the whites, do you use sulfur at press?
sorry,
Um, do you use sulfur on the must au pressoir?
no, no, no. I used to,
Mm.
but with the white, the fact was, I'm very sensitive to that, and I've got headache after one glass if there is too much inside. So the honey problem was on the white. For the reds, it's different, but for the white, if you had like 3 or 4 grams, it will be for all life of the wine 30 or 40 milligrams of total
Mm.
sulfite. So, and this rate at the beginning for me was not essential. So I decided to put less and less years after years. And now I put nothing at the beginning. I just add a little bit after the malolactic,
Mm.
just for stabilization, and a little bit for the bottling, and that's it. So I
Where
try to put minimum, and the idea is, so we are playing with the reduction, but not the reduction from the sulfite. It's reduction and oxidation from the wine inside. So it could move, it could change sometimes more quickly than we guess. But I think it's good for the time because,
And
like, yeah,
where are you in total in on average on the whites?
now and I don't know about this year, maybe about 50, 50
Okay.
around that. And I used to be much more than that.
Okay.
And this year, I do analysis for export a month ago. I was totally surprised on the rates. I think I have no rates over 14, 40.
Yeah. Cool.
So I was totally surprised because it's very, very low. We are very close to, yeah.
Élevage is on neutral woods, or I mean, you use barrels only, right?
Yes, that was, the main point at the beginning when I start to make wine because as I was consultant, and I taste a lot of wine, and most of the time, I saw, this is my great cuvée, this is New Hawk.
Mm.
But after that, always, people say you have to wait minimum 10 years before you can open it.
Mm.
But I had memory in Burgundy, yeah, like all the great wine, they are good now and they are good later.
Mm.
So for that, you don't need any makeup. You don't need, so wood is just for bring oxygen because the Sierra needs oxygen,
Mm.
but very gently. After all the makeup, the aromatic stuff, we don't need. I, I don't need in my wine. So I really want to show the terroir. And I remember, I have a story about that. I remember 2015. It was my second vintage. I started 14, it was very fresh, and we kept going with 15. And I was totally scared because it was hot vintage, and I have no idea how I can manage vinification. And 2015 scared me about structure, about extraction. So during the vinification, all the wine was exactly the same. Like my simple Syrah was the same taste as my Côte Rôtie. And I was totally scared about
Mm.
because we decided to pick everything in the same time because for me, everything was ripe. So we pick everything in 2 weeks. And the normal pick for me, it's more about 4 or 5 weeks. So I was totally scared about because after vinification, all the wine was pretty much the same. So I was like, you have to sell Côte Rôtie and Syrah, and they are pretty much the same. You have to tell your customers. But the magical part arrived with the wine. You need time, and we passed the winter, and I was still scared about because most of the wine they are looking pretty much the same. When we pass the spring, it was a revelation. The fineness of the Côte Rôtie arrived. The power of Bergeron Saint-Joseph arrived. Every terroir is showing more than what it was before. And I saw difference in every wine. And I was so happy because you just have to be patient. And the time will show you the real terroir and the real wine. So, for me, it was a big, big lesson. It was big stress, but you learn a lot because, you know, my meaning was good because for the wine, if you believe in that, if you believe in the terroir, it will show you something. Sometimes you need a bit more time than the rest, but after that, everything is, yeah, and if you taste now, my Côte Rôtie is different to my Syrah, is different to my Saint Joseph. So it wasn't
The,
an evidence first,
the,
but now it is.
the terroirs are. I have just a couple wines open.
A couple.
And even though it's 18, which is a fairly warm vintage, the terroirs are insanely well. I've known well. It's so 18 is my 5, 6, 7, 8, fifth vintage tasting your wine. So I'm starting to know the terroirs pretty well, and they're very true, and they're very different. All the vineyards we decided at the office yesterday to open every single lieu-dit in Saint-Jean and Croz. And then, of course, we opened a couple other wines. But by the way, the Saint-Péret 18 is spectacular. It's beautiful wine. It's actually extremely fresh. And if anybody that's there that has 18s, we tasted quickly yesterday. We didn't taste a lot because Jean-Baptiste and I have another thing to do for another place tomorrow. So, we wanted to leave enough wine in the bottle so we could, but basically the change from yesterday to today is also brilliant, and your wines really bloom with air. And I think that brings us maybe into the discussion of your reds, because I mean the whites, you're doing an amazing job. You're picking earlier. They're fresh even in 18. They manage to be delicate. The Saint-Péret I have both the Saint-Péret and the White Crows, which is Le Tout. We'll go visit the terroirs in a second on Google Earth and things like that. But the Saint-Péret blows my mind today. And it's a wine that's been reduced every year except this year. And there's no reduction. I mean, it's but it's super delicate. It's really a beautiful wine. And it's not that the Croz isn't, but the Saint-Péret is stealing my heart this time. So let's talk about reds, because you really have a very specific style. Go for it. Tell us what you do and why you choose to rack so much, which is counterintuitive compared to what a lot of people are doing. First of all, there's no new oak on the reds either, which is great. And the noses are just so stunning. The racking, I think, promotes a slightly Van de Garde style, but they're not austere. I just tell us why and where and what's, and
Yeah, so the story about the racking, I remember you were surprised when I told you how many racking I can do every year.
Okay, so give us numbers. We got sales reps here. They need to know the details.
Yeah. So it could be minimum. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's minimum 5.
That's a lot.
And maximum 8.
Wow.
But I'm not passionate about racking. It's hard work and it takes time. But the only thing, if you want to do no intervention, with the Syrah, it could be reduced very quickly.
Very reductive, yes.
Also, I remember in the past we had trouble in our area about Brettanomyces and everything. And I'm playing with the wall cluster. So wall cluster is fantastic for the freshness, but I have to tell you a fact. There is not much acidity for that. So if you want to protect your wine, because the acidity is one of the fact will bring your wine very clean. We don't have a lot of acidity, and I
what are the numbers? What are the pHs and what are the numbers in the Northern Rhone?
Normal pH, but normal for the 10 years ago was around 3.5, 3.6. Now we are playing more between 3.7 to 4. And so we have to play with that. So with this kind of pH, you can have big trouble with Brettanomyces and the rest. And also another fact is now we have wine with more structure, like vintage that I start 14, but except 14 and 2016, we had 15, 17, 18, 19 in the row. So which is four vintage, kind of hot vintage. So that made that I mean, we've got more structure naturally, but having a structure is a fact. But after is how you balance that, how you do the balance. Because for the customers, when he open a bottle, he need to drink something with a good balance and have a good balance for now and for the time it's out. So if you don't play with, for me, racking, there is two effects. Is make sure your wine is clean, no lees, no Brettanomyces, no deviation on the bottom, and it's bringing oxygen. And if we remember racking, it was very, very important in Bordeaux, and it's still for the Cabernet, which is a strong grapes with strong tannin. But to bring strong tannin to soft tannin, qualitative tannin, you need a combination with a bridge of oxygen. And for me, after you remember, you probably all know Michel Roland in Bordeaux who do micro-ox and everything. For me, it's too complicated. It's winemaking. And like people who used to do racking, if you do a racking, you can smell first the wine. So you can make sure it's clean, it's fruity. And then you bring a quantity of oxygen that we know since a long, long time, just because we have knowledge about. The rest, the matching, we can try to comment on dit mimer en anglais.
To imitate.
Yeah, we can try to imitate with the micro hogs and everything, but it's not the point. I'm traditional. I won't work like my great grandfather does and everything. So be traditional could be good. So if I do racking, it's for bring the tannin on the right point when you open it when it's young, and I guess and I believe when it's old. So because if I don't do any racking, for sure it will be more fruity, but the tannin will be stronger, and I'm not sure they will stay for a long, long time.
And the
So
alternative is to, so let's start a little before the racking. So you're today, where are you with whole cluster?
100%. If it's not a religion. I never told anybody I'm doing that just because it's kind of fashion for some of the customers, but it's just because I had some experience with the wine with, and I like this wine just simply. So when I started 14, for me it was just natural to do that, and I'm happy with that. And I never changed since the beginning. So maybe one day, but not tomorrow. I'm still happy with that. I think that brings complexity, that brings freshness that we don't have at all today because it's getting warmer and warmer in every place in the world. So, and for me, it's part of the fruit. And if you look at the stems, you can see what's happened during all the vintage. So for me, it's kind of memory and the greenness that I bring. For me, it's really important for the balance.
It's very important to me too, and that's why I
Yeah,
fell in love with your first vintage. And a lot of these 18s, um, my least favorite color in red wine is black. But if there's black with green, I absolutely love it, which is the case with your wines. But they could just be black, and then I'd kind of be like, ugh. Um,
yeah,
so the the vegetal element is actually of the stems is actually one of my very, very, very favorite things in your wines. And it's not monolithic green because of the
Yeah.
difference in terroirs. They take different shades of green.
Mhm.
Different reminds you of different savory things. It could be tapenade, it could be, I don't know, incense even, and things like that. That's pretty captivating. Um,
But you know,
what?
it's also about the world cluster. Like as it's kind of fashion, and I know a lot of people they want to try. They do 10%, 20%, 30% on the tank. But me, since the beginning, if you want to play, you play 100%. If you want to, and it's the best because if you do experience, for sure. If I do like Bergeron with and without, there is a difference. But if you play with 10%, 50%, you never see what can bring or not.
Mm,
So me, as I believe in that, I play 100% since the beginning, and I never had any question because I'm 100% confident about what I am buying. The grapes are just beautiful, every vintage. So there is no question about that. It's just natural for me to bring the all fruit in the tank.
what's your extraction regime? What how do you mess? What do you do with your whole cluster?
So extraction, this is a very, very important point. You saw for the people who don't know me, my cellar is very small, and as I'm sharing every tower, it's very small quantity. Like it could be 1 barrel to 3 or 4 barrel per batch. So I have a lot of small tanks. They are not higher than me. I'm not very tall, but they are not higher than me. So for the extraction, you have to be very patient and very, very gentle. Like pigeage, I'm for, but in my case, it's none of fun at all. Just because as I'm working on a small tank, if I plunge a tank, it will be a big, big plunge. So since the beginning, I'm playing with the pumping over
Mm,
and very, very gentle extraction. The idea is just to humidity feed the cape, and that's it.
mm, mm.
And after, you need to be patient. It's always about time. You need time, so you have to wait. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. So you take a risk, but and when you get the right balance, the balance that you think it's good, you rack the wine.
So you do no pigeage at all?
It's happened sometimes, like in the middle of the fermentation sometimes.
Mm.
When now with the condition that we have with the climate change, we have a bit higher alcohol in the wine. And when you are playing with natural yeast, sometimes the yeast
Oh,
they
so
are
it's
very
more to launch the
yeah,
to increase
and
some sugar.
sometimes I can't tell you the truth, but it's just feeling.
Mm,
You arrived at noon and you say, I think you need a plunging, and that's it.
mm,
You need a tirage, and I do one, and that's it.
mm,
And sometimes it's two or three, but not that much.
mm.
And it's always pretty much the same terroir. Like I do pigeage sometimes, quite often in sometimes Janoun.
Mm,
Uh, it's happened on a Bergeron. It's happened on Les Chirol.
mm,
Sometimes in Côte Rôtie de Basnon. Don't
mm,
ask me why, but that's the point. And the rest, like I have some terroir, like Cornice les Côtes, I never made any.
mm,
Um, uh, yeah, it's just about feeling. And sometimes I think the yeast told you, and I need a plunging, and I need to extract more. So if you need to extract more, you can do a plunging. It's good for that. So, but like 95% of the time, it's pumping over. because pumping over, it's like, I don't know if you know this word in English, if you understand, but lixiviation, lixiviation, that was the, you know, for the chemical, the better extraction that they find, they were never a pigeage, they were never, how would we call that? Um, oh, later. But always the best extraction was the pumping over, just lixivation. Like just you put the juice at the top and you get the best extraction. After, all the extraction that we have was sometimes too strong and not stable for the time.
Okay. We're going to take a couple questions before we move away from winemaking to the terroirs themselves. Do all your whites go through Malo?
Yes. It's like the cluster. I won't tell you, but it was an idea that I have before. And you know, if you don't add sulfite, I think it's the normal way to the wine. If you leave a wine by himself, it will do the malo one day. So my philosophy was to leave the wine, have a full life, and don't cut in the middle, because in our region, if we cut the malo, if we stop the malo, the acidity that we will win is not that much. It's almost nothing. Sincerely, when you see on the analysis, it's nothing because the malic acid that we have is very low at the beginning. So when you do the malo, for me, like my Sampere, it's a reality. Since 2014, before malo and after malo, my Sampere, the pH doesn't move at all. Maybe 0.05, which is nothing. But so for me, it's not a point to change the wine. And for me, as I don't want to add sulfite at all, it's better to live the normal life. And also, it was a constatation before 2014 in our region, mainly for Marsanne. If you don't do the malo on the time, if you do a vertical, you can have fluctuation. It could be good 1 year, and you rotate the same wine the year after, it will change a lot. We pass to oxidize to reduce. And with the wine that they do the malo, I think they are more stable. They don't move at all. They don't surprise you at all. They are going on one way, and it's pretty much the same every year. So you know, you can guess the future. And for me, it's a qualitative point. For me, quality, it's wine must be good almost always. This is the most difficult things to do, but if you arrive to that, for me, it's good.
I have another question pertaining to Malo and Reds. In Burgundy, there was a trend, and you know the famous people that did it were mostly Dujac and Roumier, for example. There was a trend to delay Malo and Reds by super cool cellars, bringing the barrels down. You've got a tiny cellar. You know, there's no deeper place where it's colder, so it's not something you play with. But is it something you're interested in, or not at all?
No, it's not possible. I believe in that.
Okay.
But the thing is, as I'm working without sulfite at the beginning, and I do, you know, temperature during fermentation on the tank, it's almost sometimes 28, 29 degrees. With this kind of temperature, you have some bacteria who are coming, and it's very hard to stop and say, wait, next spring. It's not possible at all for me. But you know, we used to have this tradition in the past, but now with the low acidity that we have, I think it's not possible at all. Like me, my cellar, normally when we arrive very close to Christmas time, it's everything is done, mallow and sugar.
Okay. I have another
But
question.
yeah, but
So
I think it will be interesting, but very, very hard to manage for me.
I have another question. I'm not sure I fully understand it from Danielle. Does your 100% philosophy RE regarding whole cluster extend to other areas of your winemaking?
Mm, sorry.
Est-ce que la philosophie 100% de vendange entière, est-ce que ça s'étend à d'autres domaines dans ta vinif?
C'est-à-dire à d'autres domaines hors région?
I'm not sure, Danielle, if you want to rephrase the question.
Yeah.
We're, we're not sure we fully understand if it's, you know, the 100% bit or things like that. And lastly, it's not a winemaking question, but who are your favorite domains in Burgundy?
Oh, in Burgundy, I have many, but some, you know, for sure there is Romanée-Conti, there is the Lambré, there is a lot.
Mm.
After, it's hard to know exactly which part they use and they don't use, but in my region, I know some of the people, and maybe one that you know, its name is Bernard Faury. It's an hermit in Hermitage. It's got one of the most beautiful tower in Hermitage, and is world cluster since a while, since always. And I'm fan of his wine. And the freshness that he have on his wine, you know, he's on the Hermitage Hill. It's a south facing, so it's very warm, and always his wine are fresh. And he always told me maybe it's the cluster. So, you know, it's memories about that. And we have also in our region, we have Jamé, we have Gonon, you know, like for me, they are examples. So I believe in that. And yeah.
Okay. My favorite bit, Google Earth. No, terroir. So you're spank in the middle of, you're in Andance. This is why this pin is here. So basically the Saint-Jean appellation is 65 kilometers, and you're pretty much equidistant from the hill of Hermitage and Condrieu. And so I think we should visit your lieux-dits, because the one nice thing about the Rhone is that it's steep, and even without vineyard maps, they look really amazing. How about we start in Saint-Joseph itself? So as I said, 60 kilometers, you have vineyards here and basically here. And your winery is in Andance, right here. And you have two terroirs in Andance,
Yes. Yeah.
which are actually very recent. Janoun was 16, the first vintage, and Chateau Marella was
17.
17. And I have both of them open in 18. And wow. Wow. That's all I got to say. 16 Janoun was one of our favorite wines in the cellar, the entire team.
Yeah.
I think we fought over the last few bottles of 16 we had. I think we may
Me
have
too.
one left in the fridge, and I think there's yellow police tape around it. So, and they're very different. One's physically, one's
Yeah. So
this one, you know, completely on top of the hill, facing, I guess, facing the sky, not even facing north or south or
Janun is facing everywhere. He's facing north, east, south, and west. So it's very, very particular. Just because first it's beautiful. When you go up there, it's just beautiful view. And And the biggest particularity, it's got high altitude. We touch 340 meters.
Mm.
So that means it's cold during the night. It's very lighty because we got the sun to the morning to the end of the day. So it's very lighty and very beautiful. And another particularity here, which is very particular for just because about the wind. Normally, we are always eyed to the north or the south wind, but here we got the wind from the north, east, south, and west. So it's very windy spot. So I mean, you know, there is, I think in this plot, every year there is only 2 or 3 treatments in the vineyard, just because you never see any disease, because it's fresher, because of the altitude, and it's windy. And the mushroom like my mildew and everything, they don't like the wind, especially the north wind.
Mm.
So it's very protected spot. As you know, Saint Pierre, Cornice, it's pretty much the same. So it's very particular because of the altitude, because of the wind, and just because when you are up there, it's so beautiful, the view. You can see the Alps, you can see everything. On the west part, we have a big mountain, which is a natural park, and it's just beautiful to see.
And on the bottom of the hill, complete opposite, you have Chateau Marella.
Yes. So it's very new. It's a project with a couple of roadside people, very much the same as Cornice les Côtes. So they are new growers. They just have a piece of land. They used to have cherry trees before, and they get retired and they decide to plant vineyard. And they asked me, Jean-Baptiste, do you want a new project? Do you want a fruit? And I said, oh yes, because it's beautiful spot. So this one, it's the bottom part of the hill. So we have a bit of soil before we touch the granite. It's kind of lost, bringing from the wind. So that's why the wine are always a bit softer than the rest. Even if it's south facing, it's always very drinkable. On the blind tasting, you would never say this is a hot vintage, just because Chateau Morel is very about the. We always talk about the fineness and the Burgundy style. What can it's kind of wine you can have a glass and then another one and say, oh, the bottle is empty, just
It,
because there is fineness.
it's
There is.
yeah, it's I think both wines, um, compared to where we're going to go next, which is a very classic part of Saint Joseph, in Saint Jean de Musol. Um, they're very fresh, both of them. And Chateau Morel, despite the fact that it faces south, is actually fresher than Janoun, at least in 18. It's not structured. It's there's not a big tannic presence to it at all. It's actually it's a spectacular terroir, more on the drinkable soif glue glue side. And I just yesterday we popped it. It was amazing. Today it's held 100%. Janoun also has that freshness, that green side, but it's way more tannic and structured. Is that the vintage? Is that that terroir is always going to be that way?
But about the freshness, I think if we want to compare, something very interesting, they probably both wine like Chateau Morel and Janoun, they probably have the same pH.
Hmm.
So we can say the same acidity, but they never taste the same freshness. I think we can talk about depth of picking. Chateau Morel, as it's south facing, bottom part of the hill, it's warmer place.
Right.
So we pick earlier. Chateau Morel is one of the first Saint Joseph that I pick.
It really
And
suits it
then
super well.
for Janoun, so we got the freshness from the fruit. It's we can say croquant.
Crunchy,
It's
crunchy.
yeah, it's
Yes.
very it's very the first freshness
Mm,
coming earlier in September.
mm,
And then Janoun is different. As it's higher in altitude, we got lower maturity. So we go in Janoun almost 2 weeks after for picking. On the paper, we have the same acidity,
mm,
but the acidity is not with the same maturity. The fruit is a bit more dark.
mm,
It's a bit more small because
mm.
it's got dehydration because
Mm.
of the wind that it got every day, every night. So the concentration is a bit different. It's more concentration of the acid because of the dehydration of the grapes. But as we got the full ripeness, we don't have the same sensation. So even if it's the same acidity, it's not the same freshness.
It's just, yeah, it's a tiny bit blacker, but not by much. But it just has, Morel is, I probably can drink that at 4 p.m. with no food, a little bit in the fridge. Janoun, you're going to want to eat something,
Yeah.
or lay it down a little, but not extreme. Um, it's not extremely dark or extremely tannic. I'm just saying, just between the two. But both of them are much less dark than when we go to Saint-Jean-de-Museau, which we shall go to now.
The place. So Saint-Jean-de-Museul, now we go down south. Um, so we can consider now these two terroirs that we will show you. They are a bit warmer place because they are located in the south of the appellation. And you see on your right side the
Yeah.
famous hill of Hermitage
Mm-hmm.
and the two spots, the two plots that I have
But let's
to
talk
show.
about Saint-Epine for a second, just because we're there. So,
So Saint-Épine, it's an historic part. We've got very old vineyard, almost 100 years, and there is people, the first growers they planted here, just because it's south facing, it's very close to the village, and they are not in competition at this time, but very close to the Hermitage Hill. And Hermitage Hill was owned by a small family, so here it was a bit challenging. So most of the people they know Saint Epine and they don't know about the rest, but we are pretty much in the same place. We've got pretty much the same granites. So for me, it was important to show something different.
I mean, it's
Um,
basically a parallel hill, a chirol, on
so
very very similar soil. It's kind of
yeah, so Le Chirol, it's very, very typical than one if you close your eyes and if you have an idea about the Northern Rhone, it's big slope and it's very big terrace with rock and everything. It's Le Chirol. Le Chirol, it's hard to walk, it's very big slope, and it's a south-facing circus. So, I mean, it could be hot if you wait too much. So this terroir doesn't matter the vintage. Every vintage you will got the maturity. After the point is the date of picking. This is the most important thing because for sure you will get the maturity, but you have to make sure you don't pass the maturity
mm.
because on this kind of terroir, if you pass the maturity, after you make a Syrah as someone else can do it in the south of France. So there is no way to doing that because our chance, I say that, we are the only people in the world who can make fresh Syrah naturally because we are on the north limit. We planted the Syrah, so we have to play with that. Playing with the overripeness, now it's possible every vintage, but I think it's a bit sad because everyone can play with that. So we really have to play with the acidity that we have, with the freshness. and with the ripeness of the fruit, not over ripeness.
It's
Um,
it's
yeah,
your most classic Saint-Jean in the sense where people associate it with Saint-Jean-de-Musol, with Gonon, with people like that. It's dark, but it actually wears it incredibly well in 18. The south-facing, warm on top of it, warm vintage thing. It's pretty spectacular. It's very it's
yeah, and if you want a story about 18, I have a story. I don't know if you know that, but you know, since 17, it was hot vintage, and I'm scared about high degrees.
mm,
So in 2018, what's happened? I remember live. It was Friday, and I was on a vineyard just for checking the grapes, and I bring it back to the labs and do the analysis. And I saw the level of alcohol, and I was like, oh, we are very close. And we are projecting to pick on Monday. And I just take my phone and call the growers and say, hey, I think for me, Monday is too late because the forecast for the weekend was 32, 33 degrees.
mm,
And for me, it was right before.
mm.
After, it will be right. So uh, I asked him if I can go picking Saturday morning earlier, like at 6 o'clock, just for make sure it's fresh and not too hot. And he said, yeah, yeah, you can go. I will pick on Monday. So I decided to pick a little bit earlier. It's not a big gap. It's just 2 days. But my level of alcohol, I think it's 13.8, and we keep some freshness.
Yep.
Not a big freshness, but freshness. And the grapes picked on Monday was 15.5 degrees alcohol.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
was so happy. I was so happy because I was very close to, after with 15.5 degrees alcohol, with the winemaking, with the philosophy that I have, it's not possible.
Mm.
Probably I have to add yeast, I have to add sulfite, and I have to change my aging because the hock will be extract too much. So, and for me, it was kind of a shock for me to decide to pick earlier, but it was a big test, and I feel totally confident with that.
It's
After, we can always talk about ripeness of tannin and everything. Me, I prefer have natural freshness
mm.
and don't bring any acid. Because if you wait the Monday, the point is you have high degrees alcohol and you have low acidity. So you probably have to add acid. So it's two things that I don't want in my wine. So we have to take decision. It was big decision, but very, very good learning.
It's stunning. It's really, really, really beautiful. So if you go deep, deep, deep into the valley and climb high, 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 you come to your left, Saint Joseph, which is Bergeron,
Bergeron.
which is on top of the hill. So it's not one of the steep vineyards, especially that you are on the flatter part. It's also because of the top of the hill. It's not your usual granite. It's more sand with, I believe, there's manganese in it or something.
Yeah, it's very, very decomposite granite. It's very
Yeah,
sandy. On the surface, it's like sand.
but
And
like desert sand, not like decomposed granite sand. It's
yes,
very
yes,
very
yes.
light and
It's
uh,
very, very poor soil. There is no nutriment at all. That's why Bergeron is always about concentration. First, the spot is beautiful. It's high in altitude, so we have a very nice view. When you're on the plot, on your left, you have the Hermitage Hill. On your right, you have the mountain from Ardèche, and it's just beautiful to see. And it's totally open sky, as Janun is. So we've got the sun early in the morning until the night. So it's very light, this spot, but as it's in altitude, as we got the north wind, is not the same ripeness as Les Chirol. Les Chirol is more ripe, full body. Bergeron is got tannin and acid. It's a bit more acid than Les Chirol. So we are on the same hill, very not far. It's not far away. We have pretty much the same soil, but the wine is different just because we pick late. So the ripeness is different. It's a bit, we can compare with Janun. We pick late, so it's dark, but we have freshness behind. But in plus, in Bergeron, we have the structure. Just because as the soil we talk about are very poor, we got concentration. So the grapes, the berries are like, it's very, very tiny, very small. So in vinification, it's hard to do vinification with that because it's very concentrate. So find the right balance very quickly, it's hard.
Mm.
So it's kind of wine, you need time. You need time. So sometimes these wines got one or two more racking just for getting a bit older and get more maturity.
For me, an 18 is the most black fruit of the four single vineyard
Okay,
Saint Joseph.
okay.
Um, Normally Les Chiroles, but there's something very something very lifted at the same time as serious with Les Chiroles, and Bergeron is black fruited. It's beautiful. It's going to take more time. It's definitely a wine for food. The three others, I don't necessarily need food. Um, we're going to go to something, I guess, that sort of defines you, which is crows.
Aha.
Because actually, let me take the vineyards out, because very few people know this. I didn't know it before I met you, but a lot of crows is under the hill of Hermitage on deep soils and galets roulés. And I will share this just to prove the point. Not that we don't believe you, but you send us a map, so we're going to use it. So most of Crows is south of the hill of Hermitage, and all of this denotes deep, deep soils with galets roulés.
Yeah.
Um,
This soil, this is 90% of the appellation, and it's bringing from the Rhone River. A long, long time ago, bringing from the Rhone River.
it's alluvial type soil. We know well in Burgundy alluvial versus bedrock with clay, and just to simplify it, in Burgundy, none of the great vineyards are in the alluvial fans. They're very good wines made, but the most serious vineyards are almost never in the mouth of the alluvial fans, the Cône de Déjection, um, because in Burgundy, the hierarchy rewarded minerality. And though galets roulés or alluvial material, at least in Burgundy, can produce very beautiful round fruits, it can produce no verticality. But north of the hill of Hermitage, just behind it, is this pocket of not a lot of wine, but that is granite, and then a whole mix of other influences. But there's a big, big, big component of granite here. And it is the most serious part of the appellation. Um, and it
And
produces
important, this is the historic part, simply. This is the historic part. Everything started to close Hermitage, and then they had a crisis, and they decided to plant on the flat part. But before that, they were walking on the hill only.
so and yes, and so and the reason I didn't know this, but when I tasted those wines, I got from Ben. We hadn't yet discussed where you were in Crows. but it was obvious. It was one of the greatest crowes I'd ever tasted. It was Les Bâtis, which we will go visit presently. And it was just so obvious that it was just so mineral, so granitic and sandy, as it turns out in this one. And here we go. So right behind the hill of Hermitage, his Hermitage, and you go right to the other side, and over here is Les Bâtis, which is in a combe. There you go.
Here we are. Beautiful.
Yes, we're there, right there.
So yes, you
I
see this tomb, it's very impressive. It's looking east facing. So interesting because we got the sun earlier in the morning and it stopped mid-afternoon. Because here it's pretty big slope. It's not as big as Les Chirolles or Côte-Lôtrie. It's not 45%, but it's 25%. So the sun passed mid-afternoon, and
I
then we got shadow. So, and here it's very beautiful being this is one of the oldest that I have. The vine was planted just after the Second World War, so it's long time ago, and it's beautiful vegetal.
It's also very unusual as far as the terroir is concerned because it's basically a total mess. And
Yes, yes.
um,
Here we've got different soil in the same place.
yeah, so there is granite, but there's also windblown sand, loess, and I just lost my zoom. Here we go. Um, share screen. There we go. And that's from the, so there's granite. There's the old bed of the Rhone River. It's extremely complex, and also the fact that it's in a combe makes it very, very fresh in a way.
Yes, because this comb we've got a wine point, so it's east facing, so sun on the morning, so which is good. And also we got the north wind, which is coming, and there is a little river on the bottom part, so that brings freshness and humidity. So they they decide to plant it white very close to the road and reds on the top of the hill, just because they've got a little bit more sun. So, and it's, I think on the past, it was kind of vintage on a vineyard, forget the ripeness, it was hard.
Mm.
But now with the climate change, I think we've got the ripeness every year, and it's low ripeness. It's not as Les Chirolles. Les Chirolles, it's south facing. It could burn very quickly. Here, there is no stress. Before you get over ripeness, you have time. You can pass 1 or 2 days. It's not a major problem. It's not as other terroir. So it's very interesting.
The
And
next
now
the next terroir going south to
let's
north.
go opposite to the to Les Bâtis. So we go west facing. If you want to talk about was about the color, maybe.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the color. So as most of you know, or a lot of you know, I have a very good friend, a geologist called Brenna Quigley. So this is granite from Abra, and there's this. It's very white, and there's these inclusions of bluish gray in it. And Brenna's a scientist, and she keeps all of us on our toes. She's kind of like the Hermione Granger of, in our lives. Like when you tell her something stupid, because we're all stupid about geology, she's always like Hermione, and it's always like, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa, And so in the Beaujolais, they tend to say there's blue granite. And the first time she heard that, or I told her that, or she heard it, she's like, "There is no such thing as blue granite." I'm like, "Okay, just don't get angry. I hear you." And then we go to Abrar, and Jean-Baptiste always says, "Well, it's white and blue granite." And you could see the shackles on the back of Brenda's neck raised. But we go to the vineyard, and there's very bad lights. And the long and short of it is that when she sent us the vineyard write-up, in it there was this sentence like, "And this would be the only case where I'd agree that there is blue granite." So it's an insider's joke, but I find it hilarious. It's white and blue granite. Is very, very decomposed granite. It's this big thick sand. It faces west. Do you want to talk about west? What? Because
Yeah, we can talk because I got there is this terroir les Abras and there is also Croisière Tenay,
yeah,
and they are special because we talk about the speciality of this part of the appellation just because we are playing on the granite soil and we are not on the galets roulés, so which is very special. But another fact is most of the terroir they are looking west, and for us in Northern Rhone is not usual at all. Most of the time, historically, they were looking for east facing and south facing. But west facing, that means it's different light. It's light. Here we got the light in Les Abras mid-morning to the end of the day. So it's a bit warmer place. And so if we compare, the maturity here are always different to Les Bâtis. They are not far away. We just have to pass the peak of the hill and we arrive to Les Bâtis, but it's totally different. So difference about the soil, but also climate. Here, we talk more about concentration. So I can tell you this wine was hard for me to understand at the beginning. I start 14, this brand, and Les Abras was very special. First, on the analysis, it's always in my cellar one of the biggest ripeness, like when you see the degrees of alcohol and everything. But in front of that, it was also the biggest acidity.
yeah, that's
So
that's that's
I
crazy.
was always surprised. And when you taste this wine, it is full of character. After it's kind of wine you like or you don't like. For me, it takes almost 3 years to really love it, just for make sure you understand this terroir. But
Mm.
if you like this kind of wine, because it's special because there is ripeness for sure every year, but you have natural acidity that you don't have
A-
in any wine.
and
So,
that's. I'm sorry to cut you, but that's what's really crazy about it, because you'd almost be tempted to be afraid of it in warm vintages, but there's a synergy. There's something that works. And I mean, this is so. First of all, the first point is that these slopes and crows are as great as Sancho. Um, they're um, they're terraced, they're granitic. Okay, some of them are facing west, some of them are facing south, but the full point is that the first thing to remember is that north of Hermitage, crows, which gets a bad rap, should be taken as serious as Saint Joseph, without a doubt. And Abrar is extraordinarily serious. It is warm, it is hot, it is tannic, but there's such an energy from the acidity that I absolutely adore it. And in 15, I was like scared to taste it because I'm like, oh God, it's going to be a monster, and it just isn't. There's a beautiful. I'm actually really, really, really. I think it's one of the best wines in 18. Despite the warmth of the vintage and its general character of power, masculinity, tannin, it's also incredibly energetic. It's really gorgeous.
and for me, about this wine, I made now 21 different wines. And they are all my babies for sure, 100%. But this one, it's always every year now. I say it's full of character. It's never perfect, but I love it
Yeah.
just because the fact which is it will be never perfect, I think, because as it's got more acidity than the rest, and the 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 the, the tannin are very strict, but on a good way, I think.
Yeah, in a good way.
This terroir is very special.
Yeah.
So if you taste it, it's never perfect, but it could be a big vibration just because it's different and full of character.
Um, Tane, new thing for you. Well,
Yeah, new.
did you
And
did you not
so
make it? Tu l'as pas fait en 17? You didn't do it in 17? No. Yes.
yes, I start 17.
Yeah,
I
17.
start 17, so second vintage. That was an opportunity for me because all the west part that you can see, this is great terroir. For me, I would class it on great terroir. And the part
Well,
where
what
this
I'm
is the
doing
name
in
Tene, it's very complex. This is a comb. And so this one is south and west facing. And here the soil is very complex because for sure this is granite, but in surface we can see the color. The color is different every 10 meters. So maybe Paul, you can talk about the soil.
um no. um it's well,
No, but I can talk about. But for me, it was a surprise because for me, one of the complex was Lebati. But when you are walking
yes,
here,
it's similar to,
every 5 or 10
yes,
meters, you
similar
change the soil because we've got granite, we've got loess, we've got
to
alluvion,
alluvial.
and we've got galets roulés.
Yeah.
So it's four kind of soil in the same spot. So it's very
Yes.
impressive.
Yes, we walked down this path and back
Yes.
that way and came down, and yeah, it's incredible. The terraces, especially around here, start to change immensely. It's young vines, and I think there's a beauty in that, is that there's a lightness to the wine. It's with Chateau Marella in Saint Joseph. I think that the two most glue wines of the lineup. The nose is absolutely spectacular. It's got um, everything that's great about green stems in the nose. But it goes over to incense, um, green peppercorn, not green pepper, green peppercorn. Just incredibly savory, and it's just so delicate and pretty. It wasn't when we popped it yesterday. It was a little clumsy, but you know, half the bottle left today is absolutely spectacular. And yeah, I it's really useful in the lineup too, just to chug. I'm sorry, but yes, it's gorgeous. C'est un vin de soif, hein. It's really stunning. Um, and then finally, your Crozes Blanc Vineyard, Le Tout.
Too far.
So every road, when we come to this area, the names of the paths or the roads all relate to white. It's called like La Route des Blancs and things like that. And there's it's actually a classic tradition of white wine around here, I guess.
Yes, this is the really beginning of the white. Very close on the right side, we have the big hill, which is called Colline de Roure.
This one?
Yeah, on the right. Yes, here.
Okay.
This hill, yes. This is the historic with this part, with Le Tout. Le Tout is more dejection because this is the bottom part, and the top of the hill, this is Domaine de Roux, which is owned now by the Jaboulet company.
Mm.
But they understand a long time ago, this is a good part for the white. here the soil is very complex. We have some limestone, we have some loess, and Lotu. This is the oldest vine that I get. We are very close to 100 years, but you know, for you, 100 years is not a lot, but in Northern Rhone,
It's
having a
pretty
vine
old
with
even.
100 years, it's a lot. We are not in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Châteauneuf-du-Pape is very common to have Grenache with 100 years,
Mm.
but as we are younger region, having a vine with 100 years, it's very impressive. And you remember, Paul, when you walk through, there is no missing. And
No.
you know, this vineyard is in very good health. They work the soil since 100 years, so there is no chemical, there is nothing. So it's very, very beautiful.
And also, you got to go in early summer because there's really good apricots and cherries right here.
Oh, yes, you remember that.
I do. I do. Um, so we're gonna go take a look, obviously, at uh, quickly a few other lieux-dits. But before we do that, what the hell?
Oh, oh,
What
what
is
is
that?
it?
What is well? What I never. So I'm always self-conscious about pronouncing the s's with you guys from the south.
So,
Is it Chateau or Chateau's for starters?
Chateau, Chateau. Let's say Chateau, but after whatever,
Is it
because
Cornice or Corna?
Cornas. But Chateau is not a mistake because no one knows what is Chateau.
So what is
So
what is
Chateau,
Chateau?
yeah, so Chateau, it's a new project. It's an autochthone grapes grow in Ardèche, so it's my department. And I had memories in 2000 and having a bottle of a Chateau from a producer. And for me, it was a revelation. It was just so fine, so elegant, and so juicy. But it was in 2000. And then these grapes got reputation about structure and acidity because it's late picking. We always pick in October. So as it's got strong reputation, it's not getting famous at all. But as I had this memory in mind, I was looking for since the beginning. And the story starts in 2018 because before that I saw some terroir but not the right people, and now I find the right terroir and I think the right people. So I start this very tiny production. It's only 1 barrel. So so it's very tiny, but I'm very proud about that, just
Really,
because it's new.
it's really good. It's
And you know, so the Heidi, it's late picking, so we always pick, even with the hot vintage that we are passed through, we pick in October. And you can see the degrees of alcohol. It's 12.5. It's not 14 or 14.5. So it's full ripeness with a small amount of acidity, and it's different to the Sierra. So for me, I'm very proud to show something different with the same winemaking, with the same philosophy, but something new. And it's very, very small area. I think in total in the world, but I think 99% are planted in the same place. There is only 80 hectares in total. So it's smaller than an appellation.
and it goes in blends normally.
Sorry?
Let's say it goes in blends in
No,
assemblage.
no, no. Sadly, sometimes it's bland because it's too strong. But sadly, most of the people they sell low price. They think because it's very strong, they put in new barrel, so it's very strong, very hokey, and that's inverse. That's the grapes need.
Mm.
The grape needs softness, gentle extraction. It's more infusion. And if you want, and you know, the aromatic will be very interesting if you respect it.
It's much riper on the nose than it is on the palate. You think you're gonna have a much darker wine, and it's black. It's not Syrah like. It's more like black goes to maybe ink or aspirin or the vitamin things. It's in that kind of zone of things, and then it's just got this super palate, which is delicate, which is very slight chalky tannins that are just absolutely perfect, and very energetic, and just it's good. It's glue with definition. It's we've been a fan since day one, you know it, and you got to make more than one barrel, dude.
No, but you know, there is, has its very, very small quantity. There is the people, they really protect these grapes. You can't grow these grapes without Ardèche. It's very, very hard.
Mm.
So there is a big protection, and I think I can say I'm very, very lucky to have a small amount of grapes.
And
Just because normally, yeah.
it's in southern Ardèche, Languedoc. Where is it?
Yes, no, Southern Ardèche. But you know, in Southern Ardèche, we can talk very quickly. But you know, I made the Roussanne and the Viognier. But Southern Ardèche, most of the people that they know this name is not a good reference. They have a flat part with limestone soil, but which is quite warm during summer. And this area, this is about 95% of the wine that you will know from Ardèche. But after that, if you pass the first hill, you change the soil, so you are back to granite. We are very close to the Seven Mountain, and we're back to really good soil with
It's
such
actually
granite.
in Montreal.
Yeah, yes, it's called Montreal, the town. And the height here, we've got again high altitude. So if we compare to the normal Ardèche, we peaked
Okay.
almost 3 weeks later than a normal uh, a normal grapes there. So it's very interesting because, like for my white, the Roussanne and the Viognier, we pick these grapes after the reds, just because they are late picking and low ripeness. So, so Chateau, Roussanne, and Viognier, remember high altitude, late picking, and good balance naturally. So you find it.
I did find Montreal.
But
So
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure it's the right one that you have. It was too far.
really, there's two more.
Yeah.
There's two Montreals in France.
But, no idea. But could you Google La Blachère en un seul mot?
Uh,
La Blachère en un seul mot. Yes.
oh, okay. Well,
Yes.
sorry. That's very
Here we
different.
go. And yes.
Okay, very different.
And Montreal is not far to La Blachère.
Where the
La
hell?
Blachère is the flat part,
Okay, I see
and
where we are.
Montreal,
Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
much better.
okay. I'll pin it next time so we never have to do this again.
Yes.
You have two côtes rôties.
Yes. And two difference just because of the soil.
Let's start
And
with
yeah.
so and following your propensity for high altitude and high, and remote, your first côte
Yeah, I found in 2015 a vineyard. It's called Tartara. So this is the name of the lieu-dit. And so we are on the schist soil, so which is very classic. But the biggest particularity, it's high altitude. And so very interesting. It's late picking. And always when you taste this wine, I will never tell you this is very typical to Côte Rôtie. I just tell you, I show you a place that I like.
Mm.
Just because it's more Burgundy, because as we pick very close to October every year, we've got the finest, the freshness. So it's never a body wine, but it's always about fineness and acidity. And
And,
so,
and also savoriness. Le,
yes,
le côté umami and savory. It's not it's not that far from Cornice Saint-Pierre in tastes.
no, because here it's fresher, just because even if it's pretty much the same soil and the same altitude, here it's much fresher, and we've got more rain. Like every year, we got in plus in Côte Rôtie 100 millimeters of water per year, and that makes the difference. Here, the vineyards are always green, and we keep the freshness naturally. If we go down south, like more we go down south, like Saint Joseph and Cornas, it's more dry, and we've got more concentration. So here we are already playing with the freshness and the greenness of the fruit. Here you can have, we talk about wall cluster. Wall cluster sometimes on the blind test you can say from a Côte Rôtie it's wall cluster. It could be not, just because sometimes it's just the freshness from the fruit
Mm.
and the greenness from the fruit. So here we are playing with both the
And
greenness from the cluster and the greenness from the fruit.
yes, it's very green peppercorn. I love it for that. It's just fascinating wine to me. And then you have Basnon, which I'm drinking the 17 of, which is the southernmost hill of the Côte Rôtie appellation.
Yes,
Um, in,
this is
in fact, this is Conrieux, and I wonder if even here is.
there
I
on the
think,
comb, on the bottom part, on the comb, we
yeah,
have the little river of Basnon,
right,
and and this hill, this is Basnon, so this is totally sandy granite. This is the same granite as we can find everywhere in Northern Ireland, so it's beautiful. And me, I'm on the top of this hill.
right.
It's very, yeah, it's big slope. It's, when you walk on this vineyard, you have to add
Right.
yourself to something just because it's very easy to fall down, and it's very impressive. So here it's east facing, so that means we've got the sun on the morning.
Mm.
So it's one of the earlier picking that we do every year,
Mm.
just because we got full sun and it's beautiful. Uh, and this Côte Rôtie, I would never tell you Tartara, it's classic. This one is a classic, but on a good way because we've got the fineness and we've got the spicy from the ripeness of the Syrah,
I
not
dis
the spicy from the hock, just from the grapes.
I disagree that it's classic. It's because of this. I mean, I guess the sandy South called blonde thing is just so elegant. There's no. I don't think blind I would ever go to Côte Rôtie. There's not the tannic presence is not in your face. It's it's
No,
it's very
because
sensual. It's sensual and graceful at the same time. It's
yeah, and the idea is not to play with the wood,
hmm,
because in Côte Rôtie, if you want to play with the wood, like if you use new hock, you will feel more new hock than the terroir. So here you really have to respect the terroir. And even sometimes you say, it's a bit light and everything, but no, it's the terroir. Côte Rôtie is not a bodybuild wine. It's just about fineness historically. If you taste wine during the 80s and the 90s, the reputation was about finesse, never about power and strongness and everything. So I think it's good classic, and we
So
have to work on the finesse because the terroir can give you that naturally. So you can have a full ripeness with a lot of finesse, and that's very interesting.
so I'm going to speed up the last three vineyards because we've been here for a long time. But
Yes.
basically, first the Saint-Péret Chalabou, which is really a spectacular white. So we're south of Cornice, in an area that's mostly known for bubbles.
Yes.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Mostly known for bubbles, which is sad because um, I think it was considered as one of the great whites by at least Raymond Point in Vienne. Um, and it's certainly, you know, tasting yours makes you okay. This is very 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 serious white wine. Um, and your specific vineyard is here. It's a terroir that has both limestone and granite, and you never know what you're going to get. What are you on?
Yeah, so me, I'm playing. So Saint-Péret, it's for me, it's maybe one of the most beautiful area. It could be great, but we have big difference. So we can play with the soil. We have limestone and we have granite. So me, I'm playing with the granite soil. So it's very classic. And then we can play with the grapes for sure. We can use Marsanne and Roussanne. And myself, I'm playing with Marsanne. So this is a Marsanne 100% on a granite. And then after Saint-Péret, there is different kind of winemaking. There is people who make sparkling. There is people who make white without wood and without malo. And there is people like me who are playing with malo and aging in all oak. So that changed the wine. So me, I show you a full maturity, 100% Marsanne on a granite soil.
It's so
And
good. It's so good. It's really 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 good. I like the fact that because the reduction can be so strong on this wine that sometimes it's distracting.
yes,
And,
but
and this, it doesn't have an 18 and you're just on the minerality. It's so granitic. It's just, you know, salty granitic. And at the same time with the roundness of the Northern Rhone, but not rich. It's really, it's really special.
and just about this plot because it's very strange, but it's the truth about the pH. I start 2014, so 14 was a cold vintage, and straight after we do 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And I can tell you one thing, so I never had any acid in my wine, and this plot every year it's got the same pH after malo on the
Really.
paper. So it's amazing because what I what I want to tell you is just whatever the climate, the vine are stronger than that just because the roots are very strong and they get the minerality when they need, they get the water, they get the food, and whatever, it could be rain, it could be sunny. Every year we've got the same acidity at the end. So it's very important. And also, um,
So what is the pH normally on this wine?
it's 3.4,
That's
between 3.4 and 3.5. So, it's never as Burgundy, but for us, I think it's a good pH.
what a nose. It's almost like a single malt with seltzer water in it. It's very complex. It's gorgeous. And then
Cornice.
everybody's favorite appellation in the Rhone now, God knows it wasn't, but thanks to two people, uh, Mr. Almont and Mr. Rochepar is now become the greatest Northern Rhone appellation there is, and I mean it's hard to disagree with some of the wines that it produces. There's a lot of energy in Cornas. There's a lot of, I don't know,
There
streets,
is a lot of good people too.
good people,
Well,
but it's,
they are fantastic. They are fantastic, the growers.
and the wines feel very real in the sense that, you know what street smart means? Quand
Yes.
t'as l'intelligence de la rue plutôt que celle de, tu vois, d'une éducation, un truc comme ça. There's something
Mm.
slightly edgy about Cornas. And so here's, with two vineyards, we can do a brief presentation of Cornas, because basically when you're down here, the first thing you see is this slope, and you have no idea that behind it, there's all these little, um, you know, nooks and crannies and valleys and a whole plateau that goes further and further and further. So I have in my glass Cornas Les Côtes because I'm madly in love with Saint Pierre and I always reach for it. So I kind of, it was time for me to reach for something else. So right over here, up here on the first slope facing the Rhone, an amazingly steep vineyard. You can't even stand in it. And basically this guy, well, you tell us about this guy.
This is a good story. Now, you know, this vineyard, it's managing like a garden. So it's the vineyard just between the forest and the house.
Yeah.
So it is
Here,
facing,
this thing.
totally east facing, yes.
You
And
can't stand
what
in
is
it.
amazing here,
Crazy. Look at the
yeah,
steepness of this thing. Anyway.
yeah. And here, the fact is, so we got the sun very early on the morning because we are east facing, but it stopped very early on the afternoon just because we are on a big slope and we are very high by the forest just over us. So this cornice, even if it's facing and is showing as cornice, it's always lighter than the rest just because I do gentle extraction first, but just because the terroir, give me that. We really have to respect. And Cornish have a tradition about strong wine and tannic wine, but sometimes you can show something different. And so I show you a piece of land that I like. The growers of the vineyard is fantastic. Is a new one, but he's managing everything in organic and everything just because he liked the house and he's like his vineyard, like he's waking every morning and walking down and looking at a vine and everything. So everything is doing by hand. So it's kind of place if you go one day, you can just like it, just because it's beautiful.
And not all granite is the same. This is a rock from Les Côtes. These are called inclusions. It's anyway. That's all I can tell you about it. But it's just really weird looking granite. Um, it's really it's very pretty again. But we're switching vintages here, 17s, because you just bottled your two Colnasses and your, so we don't have them yet. But it tastes of high altitude, of freshness, of being close to the woods. C'est bon, hein?
Well, see, it's always, I don't want to be a monster with that wine. I just want to respect the soil and the terroir and do very gentle extraction. So it can surprise, quite often the degrees of alcohol is lower than what we expect for Cornas, but I'm really happy with that. It's very drinkable, and that's the point.
Um,
Then we have another spot
yep.
which is much higher. um,
I'm getting to it.
Yeah. So
Here.
now we go to the top of the hill. This is the limit in altitude of the appellation because we are touching 400 meters.
So here we're completely on top of the hill. It wasn't, you said it wasn't even planted till the 90s because the climate was too cold.
Yes, yeah. First, they planted very close to the village, the bottom part on the hill, and then they decide to plant it this part only on the 80s. And it was strong for the people who start to plant there because most of the people they say here up here it's never ripe. You never get a ripeness just because it's too high in altitude and it's not Cornice. So most of the people who had this terroir, they just blend it with the rest. Me had memories with this wine, with this plot, separately in Fusela, and I was always like, wow, it's more drinkable than the rest. It's more fresh. It's different, simply. Even, in Cornice, we are very lucky with the soil. It's pretty much the same to the top of the hill to the bottom. There is no difference.
Yeah.
The only difference could be the altitude, the wind, and the facing. So here it's very special for me. It's the highest altitude, so 400 meters. So it's late picking, and the ripeness it's always slower than the rest of Cornice. And me, I decided in 2014 to make it in single vineyard as a single vineyard, just because as I'm very small producer, I have permission to do small quantity and show you what I like and not what is a rare Cornice. I just show you a place that I like just
You
because
have
it's beautiful. I feel good when I'm in this vineyard, and that's it. That's the point.
you have 2 or 3 barrels of this, right?
Two,
Two, two. Okay. Very
100
sad.
bottles.
Is because Jaboulet is here. Um, are they doing a single vineyard out of this, or are they blending it in?
Yes, with this part on the left. Yeah.
Yep, here. And so basically, there's just one more vineyard in Cornice up here that's higher in altitude, right? After that,
Mm-mm.
there's nothing. Well, I mean, nothing for wine drinkers. Let's just put it that way. Um, Jean-Baptiste, that was amazing to learn about um, every one of the terroirs. We will post this, obviously, because it was a long one. We will post it on the website, and we're actually going to we've decided to add track lists so people can skip to whatever part they feel interested by. The wines are beautiful. The noses are just. I'm not a aromatic driven person. I'm a texture driven person, but I just can't help just being amazed by the noses on your wines. The 18s are incredibly transparent, despite the darkness of fruit. But a lot of them are half green, half black. So who cares about the darkness? They're super fresh and they're gorgeous. How's 19?
You have to came. Now it's possible, so you have to
Now we
came.
have the right to.
No. 19 will be good. Just a few words. I want to say thank you very much to Benjamin Leroux we talked about, but
Yes.
I'm here today just because of you. And true, that was true, Benjamin. So I'm very sensitive to that, and I will never forget. And my name is small, but Le Serbes does a lot for me since the beginning. So I will never forget, and I'm really really happy to find to work with you, and that's really pleasure. So like interview like that, and it's good to talk terroir, and that's it. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone, and I miss New York. Yeah.
Yes, and you're not allowed to come to Burgundy and just go see Amélie Berton and Nicolas Faure. You have to You have to call us. So whoever's first, maybe it will be us down there, but if not, see you soon. À bientôt.
Yeah, Peter,
Yes.
ciao. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, cheers.
Bye bye, Paul.